Have you ever went to bed feeling pretty sleepy, like you were watching TV, your head was starting to nod off, your eyes were closing, but the moment that your head hit the pillow, it's like a light switch went off in your brain and all of a sudden your mind is racing at 100 miles per hour and then you're no longer sleepy? If that's ever happened to you, I encourage you to watch the rest of this video to learn about why this happens and what we can do about it. For those of you who don't know, my name is Parky. I'm a postdoctoral fellow in clinical psychology at Stanford University. I've been studying and practicing evidence-based mental health for the better part of a decade, and I'd love to share some of that information with you. So I'd like to start this video off with the story of Pavlov's dog. So Ivan Pavlov was a scientist who was interested in understanding the dietary preferences of dogs, and every time he would give the dogs food, he would also ring a little bell just to let the dogs know, hey, it's time for food. And the dogs, of course, would be really excited. They'd start to drool, they'd start to salivate because they're really hungry for the food. And the interesting that happened one day was that Ivan Pavlov noticed that even when he just rang the bell, but there was no food around, the dogs continued to salivate anyway. And the reason for that is something called classical conditioning, where essentially the dog had made an association with something that was initially pretty neutral, like the ringing of the bell, with something that they had a natural response to, the food. So the dogs, which had created this association, would begin to feel hungry and start to salivate just through the ringing of the bell alone. So humans aren't necessarily much more sophisticated when it comes to these learning principles. We can absolutely create the same associations just like Pavlov's dog did with the ringing of the bell. If we're, for example, constantly in bed, frustrated, worrying, ruminating, doing everything except what we're supposed to be doing in bed, which is sleeping, we're also going to create a very similar association. And this is what we call in cognitive behavioral therapy insomnia, known as conditioned arousal, where essentially your brain has created an association between the bed as well as wakefulness. And as a result, every time you go to bed, even if you are feeling very sleepy, your mind just naturally starts to perk up and start doing all the things it's been conditioned to do, like worrying, ruminating, all the things that we don't want to be doing in bed. So let's now talk about some strategies that you can use to break the association between bed and wake and then restore the association between bed and sleep. And the strategy that we use as behavioral sleep clinicians is something called stimulus control. And what stimulus control really is all about is how do we make sure that the bed is really only being used for sleep. So some of the strategies that can be really helpful is to make sure that you're not going to bed, first of all, until you're actually truly feeling sleepy, like not tired, but actually your eyes are starting to kind of fall, your head is kind of nodding, you're actually kind of thinking, yeah, if I were to lie down right now, I could probably fall asleep. That's sleepiness. And if you notice the conditioned arousal perks you up and you're noticing, oh my gosh, like I was so sleepy and then all of a sudden I'm starting to feel more awake, my encouragement for you is to actually get out of bed and do something you truly enjoy. This can be literally anything. It can be listening to music, it can be watching your favorite rerun of Friends, for example, it can be reading a book, doing puzzles, anything that gets you out of the space of trying to force sleep to happen, and then just do something you enjoy until you're finally starting to feel sleepy again. And then once that happens, that's when you go back to bed and that's when you try to sleep again. So you really want to make the activity truly enjoyable, not for the purpose of making it be very productive to try and force yourself to sleep or sneakily try to get back into bed before you are sleepy, but to really just take the time as, this is my time to do something else, and I'll only go back to bed when sleep is ready to take me away. And overall, the principle of stimulus control is really to start to associate the bed with a sense of relaxation, calm, and ideally sleep. So technically you can decide to stay in bed if you're like, I don't really want to listen to Parky's suggestion of getting out of bed, that's too crazy. I can stay in bed, but what I would encourage you to do is to actually sit up and read a book and do the exact same thing. You're not treating that as a time of like tossing and turning, frustration, worry, rumination. If that's happening, you get out of bed. But if you want to stay in bed, you can certainly do so, but do something that's relaxing, something you truly enjoy, like reading. And then again, when you are truly sleepy, that's when you go back to bed. And then the last strategy here is to also wake up at the same time every day, even if you didn't have the best night's sleep. And the reason for that is because it helps, one, set our circadian clock to say, this is my time to constantly wake up and this is my time to feel sleepy. And it additionally provides additional sleep pressure for you to actually have extra oomph the next night. So all of these strategies are meant to be very long-term. It's not meant to make you feel more sleepy that specific night. It's actually meant to make you feel more sleepy and feel better in terms of your long-term sleep health. So the analogy I like to use is that we are sacrificing sacrificing some chess pieces in order to win the game. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I encourage you to subscribe because I'll continue to talk about different evidence-based strategies you can use to support your sleep as well as your overall mental health on this channel. Take care.